nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to talk music, to share albums with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. I'm Petey Rave, your captain for this evening.
Ahoy.
Yo ho ho.
Good evening, passengers. Welcome to Record Breakers Podcast, Flight 754. There's a light breeze in the air, about 47 degrees, but no turbulence. And if you just sit back, relax, and enjoy your podcast. Thanks for listening.
Over at Starbird, we've got David.
Petey, I'd really like it if you start introducing us in a different order because my need for constant changes in dynamics is really starting to get irked by you doing everything in the same order.
Mm-hmm. Over in Port, we've got Drew.
Oi.
Yes. And in the Lido deck, we've got Brett.
Change nothing. The change is bad.
I need chaos. I need discord. I need change.
Ahoy, ahoy.
I gotta do laundry. I need change.
Yes. We're here to talk about music. We're here to talk about an album, and the provider of the album this week is none other than Drew. Drew, what have you brought for us this week?
Well, it was a band that I plucked a little bit out of left field. A little bit of, as you might surmise from the beginning of that, a little bit of Sailing the Seven Seas with a ska-punk flavor. Band called the Karkadens with Sovereign of the Seas as the album.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about expectations. David, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I hate when you ask me this question. Because I really have no idea who the Karkadens are. And I don't like to assume anything.
Yeah.
So I come into this completely blind, and that's just the way I like it. It's my favorite thing about the Record Breakers podcast.
Blind,
it's coming in
completely
around. Blind.
Yes. Running headfirst into a wall. Brett, what were your expectations?
Chaos.
My expectations, it took me like a half an hour to punch the name of this band into the machine properly. I did not hear the name of this band said out loud. I just saw a bunch of K's and A's and vowels and stuff. So I did make some mistakes, but I did punch it in well enough to find their latest Facebook post, which we talked about a little bit, from 2014, asking for help from their fans for them to win a cruise with Real Big Fish, which and we also found their MySpace page after that. But I did not have I saw they were from the Northeast of Ohio. I'm assuming, and that's about it. I actually didn't. When I hit play, there's no way I could have assumed what I was getting into because I really didn't pay that much attention before I clicked play.
Yes. Drew, I think none of us really knew what to expect. We kind of had some guesses, but we didn't quite know what to expect. Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
Yes, when the band refers to the Northeast, they are referring to Northeast of Ohio. They're a band from my neck of the woods. And the other day, I don't know what got into me, but I was reminiscing about bands that I hadn't thought about in a while, and this band it was that moment of remembering oh yeah, I wonder whatever happened to them. Just wondering if they were still trying to do something, because I knew the band as a whole broke up, but I was wondering what the members were doing. Couldn't find it, but ended up listening to a lot of them again, decided to throw them in here. It was one of those weird out of left field bands that happened along in Northeast Ohio in the ska-punk scene in that late 2000s time. I think this album came out in 2008, 2009-ish. And it was very, very different. The live shows were energetics. As you might have guessed, many a drink were had. It was, except for by the lead singer, but different story. There isn't anything overly wrought with the music. It's not like a deep, like, oh well, the composition of this and that. It's ska punk music with a little bit of a rockabilly-ish twinge, but about like sailing the seven seas and drinking mead and being pirates and whatnot. Which I was always sort of into the idea of that style of music being about something weird, but like I wasn't goth enough to like super fall in love with the necromantics or the horror pops or any of that stuff. I liked them, but like there was something about the Karkadens, like, yeah, no, like the pirate thing is just enough funny joke. There are things that I wish I could change about this record, but overall, there's a very fun, lighthearted nature to the whole thing. If I could re-record the horns, would I? Yeah. They're tinny and blasty, and you can tell they didn't have the right equipment because they were poor, like all of us kind of were. But overall, I think it's a fun album, if not a very deep one.
Mm-hmm. Sailing the torrential waters of Lake Erie.
The
David,
very, very cold waters.
They're tricky, those tides.
David, how would you describe this album musically?
I would describe this album as a surprisingly well-sounding ska punk album. I absolutely loved the guitar tone, and it had a clarity and a punchiness that I really, really liked. It's not hit you in the face and give you a concussion like, say, a metal, say a James Hetfield kind of tone to its riff power, but it's not like barely worth a damn, like a $12 amplifier, like a bad pop punk. It's a good guitar tone. The brass section does not totally drown out the rest of the band, but I guess to Drew's point, that probably need to be a little bit bigger in the mix. The bass is drowned out a little bit, but with so much going on here, you can only do so much. The rhythm section, when it's there, is really good all throughout the album. I think that for whatever resources might have been there, this is actually a decently recorded and sounding album. I enjoyed listening to it in my ears overall, sonically.
Mm-hmm. Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
Musically, it's rockabilly at times. It's rockabilly. It's punky at others. It sometimes has horns. There are nautical themes. I don't know, the vocals are somewhat unintelligible. Like you know, pull up the lyric sheet on this one. That's not something. I mean, I am not someone to like, you know, say anything. I've brought multiple like Misfits albums. Like, come on, it's a thing. You know, the songs are kind of similar. That like extremely. Like, you expect clean tone strumming and then some lyrics with that clean tone strumming, and then somebody stomps on a stomp box about the time that a crash cymbal gets crashed. It's also 37 minutes, so like it's not a huge time investment for it's a quick read.
Yep. Yeah, it is a kind of a really fun record to listen to, and it is a really fun tone. It like Drew said, there are things that if it had better resources, they could have done better. But music is fun, and I think the guitar tone is fun. I really like the tone. The vocals are cool in their specific way. They are effective. In the music, they're effective in like the singing and being really fun to kind of like listen to. And yeah, I think it adds to the whole milieu of the record. Let's get into some of the key tracks, some of the specific tracks. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks to zero in on?
So for me, starting out, we all end up like Jack. The bouncing like sort of feel on this, the very like chanty chorus, the fist pumpy, like everyone's in the pit having a good time chorus is great. It was probably one of my favorite live songs. Also, the sort of like acoustic-y like guitar, you could, especially knowing what's to come, like imagining like somebody by the fireside with the boat anchored off the shore just playing the song on the beach is kind of a cool idea. Sovereign of the Seas. Now, I'm remembering how to pronounce the lead singer's name right, which it's been a while. But it was Tabe. The guy had like a very cool voice. Yes, at times a little growly and unintelligible, as some punk vocalists like to do. But like there was like a cool variety to it at times as well. Like he dipped into like soft, almost whispers at times in between his like sort of growling, stiff upper lip sort of demeanor, which I thought was cool. And I think Sovereign of the Seas kind of paints that very well. And then In the Pale Moonlight, sort of ending with a marching snare rhythm, I think was really cool. Knowing all of the bands in the Northeast Ohio area at the time, I'm not sure if the discordant feel was on purpose, or maybe someone played a sour note and they didn't have enough time to go back and overdub it because money. But there is sort of a cool unease that adds either way. Also the trombone at the end of that was, I think that is, In the Pale Moonlight is the song where they kind of let the trombone sort of punch through, which I think is cool.
David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Kith and Kin. I enjoyed Kith and Kin. The outro, as I mentioned, the rhythm section, the bass and the drums are really good on the outro of that one. Also, Vendetta. It was the 5th track on the album, and that was the first one that really kind of clicked for me. All of the things that Drew described, it felt like they were there in the first 4 tracks, but never really clicked until I got to Vendetta. And that was the song that really I was able to step aboard the vessel, as it were. Also, Through the Blazing Skies, the 10th track, I think was just a straight up good, loud rock song from start to finish. And sometimes that's all you really need.
Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
We all end up like Jack. Once you hear that, you definitely kind of you know what you're getting into. It's the vocals, the backing vocals, the general style of song is on display. There's not like, there's not really like the couple skate song off of this album. It's like it's pretty much this. Vendetta, the horns really hoot. It's reminded me of some I forget which Voodoo Glow Skulls, but one of them, because I lived in a pro Voodoo Glow Skulls family at a time. And Sovereigns, well, it was my friends, not my actual family. They did not know from Spanish speaking ska, but I did.
Feliz Navidad.
Who is this? Sovereigns of the Sea. The title track. It's one of the more memorable hooks. And I enjoyed the horns between the verses. They were effective, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you guys pretty much touched on them. Like, we all end up like Jack, because when you end up like Jack, you never go back. But like, it does pretty much give you an idea of what to expect going forward into the record, and it's all set smooth sailing from there.
Har har.
Smooth sailing. I might make that a part of my conclusive thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Smooth sailing.
I said har har. Har.
Ashley Remington.
Har.
Yes. Shout out to Ashley Remington, wherever you may be. Also, another really quality track, "Let It Burn." It was really kind of a cool track in there. But yeah, I think you guys pretty much touched on the points of some of the key tracks. But let's bring it back around the horn to talk about some conclusive thoughts. Let's steer this ship around. David, how would you conclude on this album as a whole?
I would say that smooth sailing is appropriate, but for me, it was almost too smooth because it felt like everything was kind of done same even keel of smooth water that really didn't have any waves or turbulence or anything. It felt almost like a cruise ship rather than sailing on a grand adventure, possibly searching for the One Piece. The album as a whole was just kind of okay. I really did like the sound of the album from a sonic level. It was way past cool. I'll give it that much. But generally, the songs all felt kind of samey. Not necessarily in a bad way, but it felt very one-dimensional. Normally when I listen to an album, I like to get into the head of whoever brought the album and get what they were trying to show the podcast. And I feel like with this album, this was just an album. It wasn't really anything earth-shattering or world-changing. It was just kind of good. And in a lot of ways, that's okay. It's not a game changer, but it's kind of good. And I liked the rhythm section. Whomever their bass player and drummer were in the Karkadens, I think they were a good rhythm section together. Mm-hmm. But overall, it was a smooth sailing trip.
Yes, going with your metaphor, it was less Monkey Luffy and more Captain Stubing.
Gum fruit. I don't have anything else to add to that.
No, that was good. That was good, Brett.
Buggy the Clown. I got two things to add.
Yeah.
That was good, Brett. You're solid.
I certainly did not pull up the Wikipedia for One Piece.
Brett, you went 2 for 2. So
all
there
right.
you go.
Brett, speaking of, what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album?
While this isn't my thing, I've never heard anything like this before, so that's good. I'm into new experiences. I'm out of nautical themed like things to say, but if you want to find one of these, this is probably one of them. It doesn't seem like you're gonna be flipping through cassette tapes at the Goodwill and finding a whole bunch of this kind of music floating around. I'm like, I probably won't revisit this, but I am glad that I know of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was a fun experience. This is a fun album to listen to. This would be, they're definitely, I can definitely peg them as a very talented local band. That is not meant to as an insult in any way. It's just this is the only record that we have of them. I would say this would be a band you would see at a show when you're heading out with your friends and be like, "Yo, that was a dope show." And if somebody asks you what songs they played, you'd be like, "I got no idea." But then
I don't know. They opened for P-Lander Z.
But if somebody told me or told you that they were playing again like next week, do you want to go? You'd be like, yeah, hell yeah. So it's like, yeah,
But would you buy their CD after the show, PD Rave?
I would, but I just do that. I just do that. So I don't know if others would, but I would. But that's just me. Yeah, they're a fun experience and it's a fun band. And it's a fun gimmick, and that is what to be said. Drew, last but not least, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
I guess if we're going with nautical themed puns, the beginning of really hearing this band when they first started coming around was rough sailing for me, as their original sax player didn't like the band I was in, and on the local forums when those were still a thing and it wasn't all MySpace and Facebook, he used to badmouth my band a lot.
Talking that shit.
Yeah, come to find
Mad
out,
beef.
he was he was kind of let go of the band, and their
was a
lead singer
dingle.
said, yeah,
He was a
the
dingle.
lead singer said, yeah, he kind of left the band. He was always a douche anyway, so we never really missed him. So I was like, oh, good to know. And we ended up playing quite a few shows together. Really, really great guys all around. And yeah, like you guys said, it's not something that I think is groundbreaking. I don't think it's something that is going to set the musical world on fire or change anything. I don't know why, but like it made me think that there's another band from Northeast Ohio, from Streetsboro, that also had nautical themes every once in a while in their songs. Not as blatant as this. They were a metal band called Forever in Terror, and I don't know if maybe that's just a thing with like dudes from around Akron being into pirates, but
You know, the seas, the mighty
Like-
seas that are you're a ways away from that body of water.
it's all the sailing on the rough seas that we do here in the Midwest.
The
Those
mighty
ones.
lake.
You gotta navigate the Cuyahoga Fire. You know,
The Great
Man,
Miami River.
we haven't lit our fires, or we
Lake
haven't lit our
St.
rivers on
Clair.
fire in years, man.
hey,
Come on.
The
still
Grand
mighty.
River.
But
The Canoe.
it is a thing that when we did open for them, or I did go out and see them, you were guaranteed to have a fun time. And yeah, sometimes their songs do sound a little samey. They are going for a sound, and the fun part of it is not going into a deep dive in the technicalities of it, but just the fun that it is and the lightheartedness of it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let us sail down the Cuyahoga to the main event of the evening.
tell them a large barge sent you.
Piece. It's the name of the treasure.
Oh yeah, the One Piece.
Yes. As we get to the main event of the evening, we get to our haiku reviews. The moment we've all been waiting for, where we sum it all up in poetic form. Let's get it popping. David, what is your haiku?
It's acceptable. Punkabilly ska. Vaguely nautical.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what is your haiku?
We grabbed this Geico junk mail. Shiver me timbers. The Northeast of Ohio. There aren't two of those.
Mm-hmm. All right, my haiku. Really worked hard on this one. R R R R R R R R R R R R. Surprisingly fun. And last but
Good
not
night,
least,
buddy.
Nice finish.
and Drew, what is your haiku?
Ohio Ska-Punk went sailing the seven seas. Really miss these days.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Those are our thoughts on the Karkadens, Sovereign of the Seas. Go ahead and check that out on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers, the home game. Do your due diligence and your due diligence. Play along at home. Follow along with us so you can have your thoughts when we have our thoughts. On that Spotify playlist will be next week's record. The provider of the record for next week is Brett. Brett, what do you have for us next week?
So what if I told you that I could bring a Rage Against the Machine album, but not? No, we're going to go to high school time for Brett, and we're going to get most of Rage Against the Machine, but without so much of the rage, but a whole lot more Chris Cornell. We're going to do that one Audio Slave album, Audio Slave.
Mm-hmm. So look forward to that next week. Shout out to Kimberly. We jammed the Coachies. This is interesting.
Thank you.
Was that her entrance music?
Yeah.
To the guys salting the roads right now, because they are the highway.
Yes, exactly. But that'll be next week, and this is this week. And you can of course find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Brett is at HibbityBibbard, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at XDruciferX. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelly.net for this and other shows. Rebelly TV on YouTube. Go check out our shows as well. Check out Howley Juku on Instagram. We're gonna try to have more content on there. Maybe some more memes. I'm pretty busy, but I'm gonna try to.
Petey's gonna do a mukbang video, everybody.
The memes will be thoroughly dank,
exactly,
if not plentiful.
Yes.
There was a thought that Kaz might do a mukbang video, but then the lawyers got involved, and you know.
There's
It was a thing.
restraining
It was a
orders and like
After the curly Kaz portal drinking on Death Stream, I don't want to see that dude consume anything on video ever again. Period.
exactly.
I've seen that live.
I was also there live. Never again.
Yeah, big ups to both of them. But go check it out.
Dude
Like,
almost
share,
died.
like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Everywhere, reviews, feedback, all the things. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo. Cartwheels at the Red Bar.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.